Well, today we're going to connect one of the tanks up. We're going to connect the holding tank that's under the counter sink here and probably dry fit all the fittings and tubes and stuff, and then make sure we've got it in the right place, and then we'll clamp everything down. So with that, let me show you some of the items that I've got that we're going to use to connect everything, and then we'll punch a couple holes in the tank, begin hooking things up. So for the holding tank that's under the counter, we're going to use just a regular plastic type of ball valve and a couple of fittings. So this one here will connect to the tank and then come out, ball valve here, we'll do the shut off, and then we'll run a tube through the wall, and then we'll come with an elbow down to the floor, and then we have another fitting that's going to go to the floor out underneath the trailer. So this here is just a regular old cap that a garden hose can connect to, and as you can see, it's just a piece of plastic here. And just for security's sake, I'll probably tap a few more holes here, so I've got 4 screws holding it into the bottom, but this will come through the floor, and then tubing, which I have here, which is a clear vinyl tubing, will connect and run up to my elbow, which will go into my ball valve. Alright, so that's what we're going to use. So we're getting ready to get everything set up here. Got my tank in place where I think I'm going to have it set, and I've got the fitting off under the bottom of the tank so I can move around a little bit. Also took the refrigerator out because we're going to have to get back under here and punch a hole down through the floor. Plus I wanted to make sure and measure back, so when I did punch my hole and stuck the refrigerator back in, that I didn't hit the tubing and that I had enough clearance. So that's what we're going to do. So let me get set up and I'll show you where we're going to punch some holes over here in our tank. And it's chilly out. It's about 40-45 degrees, so of course I've got my little portable heater running, so you might hear that in the background, and I will keep that on because it gets cold. Alright, hang on. Alright, so the lighting's not the greatest under here, so I'm doing the best I can, but this is where the drain is going to fit on the tank. We're going to set it here in the back. We also have another part that we're going to put probably right above it, and we're going to face that elbow probably in this direction here, and then this fitting goes like this, and then we'll just run a tube, drain tube from here over into the elbow, and we'll call that good. So now we just have to mark a couple of holes for our fittings, go ahead and install our bulkhead fittings, and then we can get everything else in place. Alright, so I've taken a couple of quick measurements here, and this is where we are going to punch our holes in the tank. So our fittings are going to fit about right in there somewhere on each side of the tank here on the back, and we have a top and bottom. So these fittings are about, I believe they're 1 3/8". Yes, 1 3/8". So I went down to the hardware store, purchased a 1 3/8" hole saw, and that's going to give my hole right into the tank. So next is to go ahead and grab a drill, which I didn't bring out here, and go ahead and punch those in, install the fittings, and then we can set it in place and dry run our tubes and make sure that we've got everything where we want them before we go ahead and secure those into place. Then we'll pretty much be done with that. We'll have to punch a hole through the floor, make sure the tank is tightened up, or the sink is tightened up really good, and then we'll pour some water in there and see if it drains without getting water everywhere. That'll be cool. Okay, hang on. Alright, no turning back at this point. Now we just got to punch our holes, and hopefully we've got them in the right spot. So here goes. That's one. That's two. Alright. Makes a nice little mess. Now what we'll do is we'll take a little razor blade and we'll clean up this edge here, and then test fit our bulkhead fittings, and hopefully they're in the right spot. So after drilling the holes, you got some little jagged edges here. So I'm just going to take a razor blade real quick and just trim around that edge. Nothing spectacular. Just get all the little gnarlies off of there so it's nice and clean. What we want is the fittings to seat against the area nice and flat, nothing keeping it up cause any leaks. Looks good. Do the same here. Looks pretty good. Now, just have to go from the inside and clean that up a little bit, and then we can stick our fittings on. So with the holes drilled, cleaned up, and I took it outside and emptied out any of the shavings that were inside, now we can test fit a couple of the bulkhead fittings. So this part here goes on the inside, and we're just going to set that in place just like so. Perfect. Then we have a rubber ring and a plastic ring, slips on the outside like so, and then we have our nut, and the wide flange here on this lip will go on the inside, and it's a left-hand screw, so goes just like that, and probably doesn't need to be any tighter than that. It's got a pretty good seal. We'll put the one here on the bottom. Same thing. So on the top I'm using a 1/2 inch, and on the bottom I'm using a 3/4. That's it. So now with our bulkhead fittings in place and compressed somewhat, now we can install some fittings and get those in place. So just for a little security's sake, I've got some Teflon tape that I think I'll use. Put this on here like so. Go ahead and put this in place. That's pretty well tight. And then we'll do the same thing on here. And then we can get our shut-off valve on here. Make Make sure we have everything pointing in the right direction when we get it hooked up. I think what I'll do is I'll take the channel lock here, just hold this. And call that one good. That looks pretty solid. And then do the same with this piece here. Now this is the drain side, so there's no pressure on the fittings, so I'm not too worried about it actually blowing apart. So more than hand tight is probably sufficient for these. And the only time that there's any liquid going through it is when I turn the valve on. Water flows through. Other than that, it's in the off position, so there's no pressure to it. So I'm comfortable with that. And one more fitting here. And this one here, I think I'm going to have it pointed this direction. That may change once we get it inside and actually see how we want it to fit. Alright, I think just like that. That in here. Just like so. Okay, so now we can set it in place, get a few hoses hooked to it, and see where we need to push a hole through the bulkhead here. We'll get set up for that. Alright, so now we've got our tank back in place. I think this is about the direction that I want the tubing, because it's just going to run from the bottom of the sink here right into this. I think that'll work pretty good. And then here at the bottom, I went ahead and made a mark on the wall where I need to punch a hole. Then we can run our vinyl tubing through here, put our elbow on, and then figure out where we're going to come out at the bottom. And I made a little line back here. It tells me the back of the refrigerator, so I'm going to come probably about an inch from the wall, maybe an inch and a half from the wall and out, and that'll be where we will tap through the floor. And with any luck, I won't hit any studs or anything that'll screw anything up, so we'll see. Okay, so I think next step is to punch this hole, get our tubing on here, and then I'll go ahead and fit this tubing. Okay, so this is what I have so far. I've got the tank sitting here. I have the two bulkhead fittings in place and tightened. And I also have my fittings in place here and my shut-off valve, and I have my hose running through the wall here. And I also have a fitting here and going up to my sink drain. And I might have to rethink this because it looks like it might be kinking here just a little bit, so I might have to put another fitting right here. So I'll run it over to the store and see if I can't find something. In the meantime, next step is to punch a hole through the floor here, out to the bottom of the trailer, and then I can run my hose right down through the floor and out, and that'll be my drain to the outside. Alright, so I think with what we have right now, I can drain the sink if I need to. Just won't be able to drain it to the outside just yet. So I have to run to the store, see if I can't grab another fitting for here, and then we'll worry about punching a hole over here in the floor. Alright, stay tuned. Well, as luck would have it, my store was closed, so I couldn't pick up the fittings that I needed, and I think I needed another spade bit so I can drill through the bottom of the trailer up and have room for a clamp. So I didn't get as much done today as I wanted to, but we did get some things accomplished. They're in place. I could probably fill the sink up and drain it with no problem and test for leaks. I'll probably do that when I'm able to drain it through the trailer. That way you know, I don't sit here with my tank full of water. In the meantime, I'll show you a couple of parts that I've got for the freshwater tank and what we plan on doing for that. So for the holding tank, I just went with the vinyl tubing. So I just cut a longer piece and made sort of like a trap right here, and my water level of course will be about right in here, and we'll try that, see if that works. It didn't kink on me, so longer tube, that works. I just need to get some clamps now and clamp everything up. Then on this side we still have to punch a hole in the floor and run our drain down through it. Yeah, I want it on the bottom. It's concealed, don't have to worry about punching a hole in the aluminum on the side and maybe creating a leak there. So that's how I think I'm going to go with it. So that's looking pretty good. I still have a lot of area here, got some area on top if I wanted more storage or anything like that. So it looks nice and clean, and I think that's going to work for me. Now for the freshwater tank that's going to be here, we're going to go with some different fittings. So I'm going to go with the PEX. The PEX is a harder tube and brass fittings. So this is the fitting that's going to come through the side of the trailer. That's going to be my fill tube, and that will run to another bulkhead fitting here on the side of the tank, and I'll have an elbow that come off of here and feed into that. So and with those I've also got the clamps and the crimper tool. So once we get done with the holding tank, then we can start on the freshwater tank and get all these fittings in place, and that'll be a rigid setup, and I think that's gonna work just fine. And yeah, it should look pretty good. The tube that I have is a nice straight PEX tubing. It's white, it's a neutral, so they've got blue for cold and they've got red for hot, and then they've got the white, and I'm just going to go with white. So these parts I picked up at Lowe's, Home Depot, local hardware stores, probably Walmarts and Bimarts. They all have these fittings. Lowe's have a better selection as far as your clamps and your crimper tools and such, and also the shut-off valves. So I picked up a couple of these because I haven't decided whether or not I'm going to still use city water, which may not be a bad idea. These parts here I got at eTrailer.com. I mentioned those before in a previous video. Very good people, good prices, and a lot of different selections to choose from. So this piece here I'm going to use on the bottom of the trailer and run that through the floor like that, put my hose on there and clamp it, and that'll be my drain for my holding tank. On the freshwater side, to drain the tank, I'm going to go with a different fitting. I think I'm going to use a PEX fitting that I have on order. I actually have two of them, so I might wait for the PEX fitting to arrive for the other side. And then this here is my water fill. That's going to go on the side of the trailer. This here is metal and brass, and so I've got a PEX fitting here on the end that I'm going to run into the freshwater tank. So that should be a fairly good setup once it's installed. So there we have it. Pieces for the whole for the freshwater tank. I've got holding tank in place and looking nice. I just gotta do the part here on the floor, and then we'll be set to drain some water. Alright, we're getting there. So just a couple more pieces and parts and fittings and attachments, and well, we should be camping here before too long. Hey, thanks for watching the videos. Thanks for your comments, and thank you for those who have subscribed to the channel. That's very much appreciated. And I just need to get a few more subscribers, and we'll be hitting 1,000 subscriber mark, which is pretty impressive for for what we're doing. So hey, thank you guys. It's a lot of fun making the videos, and a lot of you are getting something out of it, which is pretty impressive in itself. So thank you. Keep the questions and comments coming, and we have a lot more to do. Well, maybe not a lot, but we got some more stuff to do, and then we'll hit the road with this and start thinking about another project. So thank you, and stay tuned.